Bitcoin, trade, technology, money. Those are all things people are looking towards when it comes to the future. Today, I talked with the co-founder and executive director of Palmetto Chain, Dennis Fassuliotis, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Dennis Fassuliotis, welcome to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Nice to meet you, Quintin.
Oh, it's nice to meet you as well. I know that
Fassuliotis for short. Smith for short, actually. Make it easy.
Yes, sir. Well, let me jump right into it because we're limited on time here. But obviously, you are the executive director and co-founder of Palmetto Chain Incorporated, which is South Carolina's blockchain initiative, that is, and the USA's first state-based blockchain trade association. And you just mentioned it off camera: technology, trade, and Bitcoin. Why Palmetto Chain? Why South Carolina?
Well, my journey here started about just a little over 3 years ago, and it was my third look at Bitcoin as a currency, as a method of investment. Bitcoin is the first open source digital currency that's native to the internet. It began about 12 years ago with the publication of the white paper by a pseudonymous individual or individuals, and it has taken on all comers. It is, its death has been predicted hundreds of times, by all the pundits, but it still just keeps plugging along, So what it's done is blockchain, the underlying technology of blockchain has inspired the growth in an industry that's disrupting, multiple different industries. I mean, primarily the financial technology industry, because this is the technology of money, and consequently, with the technology of money, the banks enter in, the commercial banks, central banks. I mean, all of the institutions, that control, the world's money supply, pure and simple. So, what we have with Bitcoin and all the different cryptocurrencies now that have been developed, or in the process of developing, are platforms which are bringing new business models to these industries, and because of the decentralization nature of the databases, having multiple ledgers that can't be hacked, and immutable records that always move forward, and you could always see where they were changed. You have a trust mechanism in the underlying technology that replaces third parties. The trusted third parties. The ultimate example of it is as in the real estate industry, as an example, as it continues to automate and grow. I mean, eventually you'll be able to buy a house, or a condominium or a flat in London, or an apartment in Paris, or a condo in Singapore, just as easily as you might buy something on Amazon. So there's a long way to go to that, but that's really where we're going. Pure and simple.
Yes, sir. And what are those other new business models that you are looking at right now?
Well, just the business of governance, in an organization is one area where blockchain, is really excels, because, you have to have multiple sites where this information is maintained and where the ledgers are maintained. So you have individual node operators, which could be you, me, anybody in the system can operate a node potentially. In any of these currencies. Certainly, Bitcoin is one of the most popular. It has one of the widest networks, so there are just new skills that are being developed every day, and it's just an expanding base, what it comes down to. The business models themselves, I mean, potentially, something that, might be reversed. I mean, just, simply having the ability to eliminate a third party from, the process of a stock exchange, for example. And literally, you're transferring, your assets, which you're holding in a digital wallet, on your phone, and rather than, shares that are held, by a third party like J.P. Morgan Chase or
Right.
Bank of America, whoever,
Right.
from that standpoint. So what it allows you to do also is, as tokenization continues to replace and be defined really, and at the state levels right now. I mean, that's really where we are. Again, I'll go back to real estate as an example. You could tokenize a real estate portfolio and of say Charleston investment property, if you would, and you could sell those tokens to anybody in the world 365, 7 days a week, that 24/7, 365, excuse me. If they're interested in Charleston real estate, you have a worldwide market that you never had before, and you're unleashing potentially trillions of dollars of assets that are tied up right now. Not to mention the ability to sell fractional interests to a larger market. And one of the biggest problems with partnerships and multiple owners, is that if somebody wants to get out, you really only have a few people to sell to. This potentially opens up that market to the world.
And what else is being tokenized right now?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's so much going on. I mean, obviously, we have virtual currencies as just the most obvious example. But art, is being tokenized currently. You have a segment of called NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and if you have a child that's got a pet unicorn on her phone, she thinks that's real. Okay. And, they're willing to, I mean, obviously these are the types of things that can be created with NFTs, but art in itself. I mean, I'll give you an example. There's a group called Rally out of New York. They buy classic cars. They're creating alternate investment platforms, so that you and I could buy a piece of a Ferrari or a split window Corvette, and they have a showroom where they maintain the cars. You can go see your car, and you could trade that token for $45, whatever the entry point is. You could own a piece of a luxury car or a very high-end piece of art. But one of the things a lot of people are familiar with that have been exposed to this industry a little bit or may have just heard about it was crypto kitties. I mean, that was 2 years ago. It crashed the Ethereum website. It was so popular, but you could go online, design a crypto kitty, and offer it for sale. I mean, some of these things have transferred for over $100,000 in sales and auctions and that type of thing for fundraising purposes. So it's a huge market. The NFT market in its own right is a huge market. So those are the types of things that we're seeing now. But a lot of this was really petri dish level development. I mean, we are really at the very beginning of this right now.
And you talk about that NFT. What is that growth rate?
I'm sorry?
What is the growth rate?
The growth rate for NFTs, I can't give you that. I'd have to get back to you on that. Yeah, okay. But I mean, it's everything in this business is growing exponentially. I mean, so you could expect probably triple digit growth in this business over the next 5 to 10 years easily, if not 4-digit growth. I mean, we've had Bitcoin alone, right, from its inception is up 14,000%. Since in 12 years. I mean, if you're fortunate enough to be the guy that bought that sold the first pizzas, you're a multi millionaire now. I mean, so right. But and that's what's so fascinating about it. I mean, we really are just at the beginning of this. I mean, we've got there's more investor awareness, than there ever has been. We're seeing large corporations, now that custody issues have been worked out for third-party custody, where they're going in and purchasing large blocks, large amounts of Bitcoin, specifically for their treasury, taking cash, putting it to work. There's a lot of concern out there with inflation, and how do you? I mean, with all the money that's been pumped into the industry, and the printing presses just keep rolling. We're looking at an asset. And I'll again just go back to Bitcoin. I mean, since it is the predominant asset in the cryptocurrency space, I mean we're seeing it now, potentially being used as a replacement, an investment instead of gold. So.
Yes, sir. And you talk about obviously cash being put into work. Where exactly is it going to work? Where?
Cash? Well, cash is going into projects that are being developed. So obviously software development. There's a substantial amount of money that's looking at North America now in the mining industry. Mining is the process of verifying the transactions. Okay, these are primarily computer centers. They're data centers. There's a large concentration in China. Large concentration. The Russians have been, very prominent trying to develop the industry. Other Asian areas, for the most part. But now with COVID, a lot of people recognize the disruption, that something like this, obviously has created. It's created disruption everywhere. So North America is becoming a much more focused area for offshore investment, that wants to come into the mining industry. We have one of the largest North American mining operations centers in the state, actually, that has mining operations all around the state. So the potential for that industry. It's a small industry, but very it's becoming it's beginning to. Excuse me, I got a mosquito flying around me. See, it is Charleston, right?
Yes, so, even in the winter.
Even in the winter, yeah. So we're seeing. I mean, with the weaker dollar, Asian. Investors are looking at coming into the U.S. Large corporate groups that are starting, to realize the efficiencies that big operations in this industry, in the mining industry specifically, can bring to the table. They're looking at diversifying into it, making potentially long-term 10, 15, 25-year investments, into the industry. The ability to borrow against the industry, your financial centers are starting to get familiar with it. So, if you could leverage capital, for investment, you would basically attract more industry, pure and simple. Yes, so that's all happening in North America is what it comes down to right now.
That brings me to my next question, Dennis. Do you foresee any crypto ambitions that is from overseas threatening our country?
Oh, I wake up. This is what wakes me up at night. And really what lights my fire daily. I mean, we are really, as a state initiative, we are on the front line of what's happening in the United States against competitive interests, from around the world. And we see so much of it coming out of China right now. China's, really been a big adopter of blockchain and has put, billions of dollars to work in developing, their financial products. They've already introduced a digital yuan, which is being rolled out, and we have to be prepared to accept it and trade. I mean, they are looking. I mean, there's no question they're looking to upset the table, the economic table, and not just have a seat at the table. They want to be at the head of the table, and technology is part of that driving initiative that we see, and that we're trying to respond to on a state level right now. Certainly happening on a federal level also, but much slower.
Now, how do we accept that?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
How do we accept that when you talk about China? How do we accept that?
Well, I mean, if you're listen to the recent announcements from the national security director. I mean, we're in China's crosshairs, and if we don't step up to the plate, we run the risk of being a second tier power. I mean, it's just that simple. So, we have a large segment of the. I mean, it seems we have a polarization in this country, simply based on political agendas, which seems to define how we may perceive, the Chinese threat, to our economic base. Okay, but the reality is that it exists. I mean, there's no doubt about it, and we need to step up to the plate and allow innovation really to guide us. I mean, and understand that we are in a world competition, and the strengths that we have as a union and 50 individual, but also 50 individual states, slow us down in some areas, but certainly allow us to excel in other areas. So it's certainly not unnoticed. I mean, I will say, I know firsthand that blockchain, initiatives and jobs at the federal level and at most state levels were considered essential, during the earliest days of the lockdown.
Now, what areas have been accelerating and what areas have been slowed down in your mind?
Well, we've seen obviously the slowdown, with the the big jump we had in 2018.
Right.
Okay, and then the SEC stepping in, and we had a huge sell-off in the marketplace, and just the uncertainty of regulation, reduced the number of new projects coming out, and with their ability to raise capital. Okay, the state of Wyoming took on, if you may have heard the term ICO, initial coin offering. I mean, there was $24 billion raised, in 2017, and that's what got worldwide, and that's when the market approached a trillion, on trading platforms. That's what got everybody's attention. So, and a lot of these offerings were being done as securities or under similar to securities, but weren't being regulated. So, so that's where we are right now. I mean, in terms of at the federal level, trying to understand exactly how do you maintain innovation while also maintaining the integrity of the system. Wyoming actually took on that. The state of Wyoming actually took on that that challenge, and recently enacted 13 landmark statutes that define that industry, and it's the most crypto friendly state in the country, and so you see a growth now in that marketplace, that's coming out of Wyoming primarily.
Yes, sir.
So.
Yeah, indeed. And you talked earlier about those new products. What exactly are those right now that you're watching?
New products?
Yes, sir.
Well, identity is a big deal.
Okay.
And identity platforms, if you will. The ability, your driver's license. I mean,
Right.
as everybody's example of identity, we see identity in voting right now. Digital identity will be much different from your driver's license. I mean, you'll have the ability to establish what attributes you want somebody to see or provide. So, if your daughter's going into a restaurant or a bar, and there's no reason for the bouncer to know where she lives. All he needs to know is how old she is and that she's of age at that point. So, there's a lot of discussion right now about possible health passports that might be necessary for travel, and having immunization recognition. So, all of these things are coming down the pipeline very fast, and that's one of the things that's really caught my attention. I mean, there's so much though, but that's something that we're going to see, I think, much sooner rather than later. You get into supply chain applications. I mean, we've seen the disruption of supply chains, as a result of the disruption, the shutdowns of borders, basically, and manufacturing. The efficiencies that are being developed in supply chain, where you can know the source of your food or the source of your pharmaceutical, and not just where it's manufactured, but where the actual ingredients come from. Okay, and know that it has integrity. So anywhere where authenticity is integral to the trust mechanism, and knowing that what you're getting is what you've ordered, is an area that we're watching very closely and actually advocating for in South Carolina. I mean, South Carolina is a supply chain state. We have manufacturing, we have ports, we have inland ports. I mean, it's the lifeblood of the state. So it's a big area that we're looking to move into, and hopefully be a very disruptive force there as well.
And you talked earlier about the borrow against the industry. What has that process been like for the past 5 years?
The borrowing industry?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, are you talking about in this industry, or
yes,
in real estate or in general? Okay. In this
sir.
industry, well, I mean, it's just like anything. I mean, you can't, this is for your commercial banks, this is a whole nother area. So, if they touch it, it's only because, they have some familiarity with it. Okay. But, it's starting to, actually create its own industry. There's an acronym called, that's termed DeFi, decentralized finance. Early adopters of Bitcoin, that may have large sums but don't want to sell it, can borrow against their Bitcoin on platforms and literally receive loans, via a smart contract, within minutes, at very competitive interest rates. I mean, from 1% up to 7.5%. So that's as competitive as as any bank that you'll get out there. But you also have areas where in lending, where you're actually just putting up your digital asset as collateral to provide liquidity for a trading platform. Okay. And as a result, you receive a percentage of the transaction fees that, one model is where you would actually receive a percentage of the transaction fees, as part of that, investment or deposit. And, and I mean, you're getting exponential returns, for loaning out your digital assets for that. I mean, I could put a cash to work right now, through a true USD stable coin, which is a dollar denominated stable coin issued by one of the most reputable organizations in the world. And you could garner 10% on your investment, compounded weekly. I mean, that's, kind of mind-boggling when you think about it. So, these are, but if they're paying that out, in other cases, they're, obviously it's a business model. They're making money on that deposit also. And in those cases, that actually kind of, and I will say this. I mean, one of the interesting things about this industry is that we are talking about primarily bearer assets, and I mean, they are. You have the ability to hold these yourself. So consequently, there's a saying, if it's not your keys, it's not your Bitcoin. You have a private key, you have a public key. Your public key is the address that you give out, for either for transmitting or receiving, or in the case of identity, it would be you're actually, may have a cryptographic key that could be your identity, the private key is how you would control all of your assets, so you never give that out, is what it comes down to, or only to a very trusted source.
What keys are actually popular right now?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, what keys are actually popular right now as that plane goes up above us?
What
Yeah, what keys are popular?
what keys?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
well, keys is more, keys are really a term to identify, literally the, your private password, if you will. I mean, and keys can be either a cryptographic hash, 26, characters, or it could be a numeric, or a word phrase, 12 letters, or 12 seed words that you can memorize. So if you memorize your seed phrase, I mean, you could literally travel anywhere you want, into any jurisdiction and carry your funds with you, and simply, recreate a wallet, digitally on your phone, and have your funds available to you. So, the whole concept of keys is, it can be a little bit difficult to kind of wrap your head around, at first, but at the same time, that's what, really provides us the security levels, that, we have, currently with holding assets, and, being able to transfer them, and, and be able to, to work with them.
And what is that security level with those keys?
Well, obviously, if you there's multiple security levels. Obviously, it can start just as simple. I mean, and when you really think about it, the whole idea of a digital IQ, if you will, a DQ, is being established right now. And just being aware of simple, phishing, emails, and understanding what to look for, not clicking on links, that you're not familiar with, anything. I mean, hackers can be very, very patient. All they want to do is just get access to your information. I mean, I've learned by doing. I mean, I've been hacked several times, and I guess it's probably because I got a little gray hair in this industry. It is, I've left my guard down, and I've lost funds. We've had our emails hacked. We've had I've had a SIM card swap. It's just, you have to be aware. I mean, something as simple as not using your birth date or your year, as a passcode, and the security questions that you get, to answer, for any website now, it's better not to give them the correct answer, because if they have access to your data, you might be able to, somebody might be able to figure that out. Your mother's maiden name, for instance. I mean, you may use your father's, family name there. I mean, any number of things that, it can be just as simple as that. I mean, that's and it really gets down to the weakest link, so that, your digital quotient, if you will, is a developing IEEE term, that and standard, that's being developed, both for corporate as well as for individual knowledge in the, in the new economy, that's, that we're right in the middle, right at the beginning now of developing.
Speaking of
So
knowledge,
everybody needs a digital quotient, or needs to, get more familiar with, just security. I mean, it doesn't matter what age you are. If you're on the internet, you need to be aware, that it's the Wild West. I mean, and there are of folks out there that don't have all the good intentions that you and I may have.
And speaking of knowledge, we have the College of Charleston, the Citadel, Trident Tech, South Carolina State, and of course Charleston Southern. What percentage of these schools are offering courses on blockchain, cryptography, and obviously cryptocurrencies and digital economics?
Well, great question, and that's been part of our initiative to get more activity at the college and university level. It really, I would say that the University of South Carolina right now is probably at the forefront. Okay. Through the Darla Moore School of Business. One of the founders of Horizon was a PhD candidate there, and was one of the founding members of Palmetto Chain, actually. We met 2.5 years ago. Dirk Brown at the University of South Carolina has been a tremendous advocate. He's put on a senior level, graduate level course, cryptocurrencies, that Jimmy Lentz out of Duke teaches. We recently were able to get a teaching slot for an adjunct professorship at the University of South Carolina in the Library Science program. One of our founders, my co-founder Gordon Jones, right, is teaching that class, and out of that program, we've already developed a project in identity through one of the students that is starting to take hold, and focusing primarily on digital identity at the student level. The Citadel has a program in their cybersecurity work group and their data processing work group. No classes over there that I know of right now, but they have expressed interest in trying to set up a work group. At the College of Charleston, we have some IoT research going on in this Computer Science Center. Chris Starr in the Business Center there is a data scientist that's very hot on IoT, specifically, and we've been Chris is a member of Palmetto Chain, and frankly, out of this, I invite anybody that sees us to join us at Palmetto Chain. It's real simple, just www.palmettochain.com, and click it on, and there are a lot of resources there to look at. But so we're trying to move into the South Carolina State, I always get the acronym messed up. There's a lot of interest at, we have one programmer that came out of DHEC that's got a big project that's very involved with the HBCUs, Lockdown, LOKDON. Okay. And he's been influential at the state university level and the HCBC.
So HBCU?
Yes, excuse me. Yeah. So, but anyway, I hope you can cut a little bit of this out. But so we are really still in the early stages. I don't want to leave without mentioning Dr. Dwyer's cryptocurrency course at up in Clemson. Okay. He and a mathematician there are probably the core of the crypto education program at Clemson. Jerry is a former Atlanta Fed VP, internationally known economist, BB&T scholar, one of our advisors, and also a James Island connection, believe it or not. So we have the core group of an emerging educational program in South Carolina, and then as an entry point, obviously South Carolina codes. I wouldn't want to mention education in South Carolina without mentioning sccodes.org, right. Because they're laying a lot of the groundwork for folks that might want to get into this industry from a coding standpoint, by teaching all of the the different platforms that potentially are are part of the knowledge base that you need to get into blockchain programming. So, we've got we've got a good core group, but we need more. And we need more attention at the upper levels and senior levels of the colleges and universities to understand, just how disruptive this technology is and why they need to be teaching it.
And how many are actually launching or have launched research labs on blockchain?
Colleges and universities in our state. I would say that that's. I'm going to be stretching it, but because otherwise I got to say zero. We don't really have a research and lab for blockchain in South Carolina just yet. At a college university level, unless we look at the College of Charleston with their IoT platform, and that would be the extent of it. But we are actually in the process. We have a proposal to South Carolina Commerce through a sister organization, southcarolinablockchain.org, and we are proposing an incubator in South Carolina specifically for blockchain development, in the enterprise area. Not so much crypto, but for supply chain, enterprise solutions, health, identity, those areas. Crypto is kind of the sexy side of the industry. Enterprise blockchain is the more utilitarian area, and we see huge potential in that area is what it comes down to. So we hope to have some announcements on that within the next few weeks.
And do you believe with theory and practice that the blockchain can actually lead to huge breakthroughs in research areas?
In research, AI level, and the trust mechanism associated with blockchain. I mean, absolutely. I mean, there's there's again, those are the two underlying technologies, that are going to transform, our systems and our operations. I mean, the ability to, to learn. I mean, just if you think about AI as just a simple process of a machine learning a game. If you remember the old Pong game, where you eliminate a block, and and suddenly you realize you can get around it, and knock everything down. Okay, well that's machine learning. I mean, that's it's something. I mean, I would really encourage everybody. There's some great educational resources out there on just artificial intelligence and the basics, but these are the areas that we're competing on an international basis. And a small sovereign country like Malta. Malta was very instrumental in laying out the initial rules and regulations for the cryptocurrency industry in the EU. And consequently got a lot of investment. They've been focusing on the AI industry now, and that's where you'll probably see a lot of development. Pure and simple.
Well, Dennis, thank you so much for your time, and again, welcome to the award-winning Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, Quintin, thank you so much for having me. It took us a little while to get there, but like I like to tell everybody, I think we have one of the most beautiful places in the world to do business. So South Carolina is where we're trying to attract this industry.
Okay.
So we really appreciate your time and taking the opportunity to learn a little bit more about it, and look forward to sharing more with you.
Yes, sir. I'll be right here.